NathanBairdCleveland.com.
Ryan, it's not, I guess, necessarily that Kyle has had protection issues like chronically, but there were a couple of instances last week with the fumble and the grounding call, and there's been a couple other plays like that. I guess just how are you counseling him right now through those situations as I guess he continues to grow in the way that he anticipates those pressure situations in reset?
Yeah, the number one most important thing is the football, and that's going to be the way this weekend. It's a huge part of the game, and we got to take care of the football across the board. We got to make great decisions, and know when to cut your losses. Have a plan for when it goes, the way that you expect it to, but have a plan for when it goes, sideways. And I think it's really what you have to do every time you go into a play is, okay, here's what we expect. When it doesn't go that way, I might have to be in a management situation, which is let's not make bad plays any worse. And that's all part of playing the position.
Obviously would have been part of the planning and everything last year for a game like this. And when you're seeing a team like this for the second time, are you building off of concepts and stuff that he would have already maybe been familiar with going into a week like this?
We play so many games and there's so many, just different practices. But I think the good thing is, again, for somebody who's been in the system for a couple of years, they've been through preparation before, they've been through game planning situations. They've seen the games live. I think a lot of our guys understand what this game is going to be, the intensity. But yeah, now that the coordinators have been there for a couple of years, there's a little bit of a familiarity there. But they change year in and year out. Their personnel changes. It changes in the game. So, but it is good to have some guys that aren't doing it for the first time.
Ryan, you guys look like you got a little bit more creative in the way that you guys use motion and things on Saturday. Is that part of the progression with Kyle and just giving him more and giving this offense a little more with each week?
Yeah, I think every week we want to keep adding more and growing. There's give and take to everything that you do. You want to give the guys a clean plan. You want them, when you move something post-snap, like you said, or pre-snap, like you said, the pictures change. It changes for the guys up front. It changes for the quarterback. There's always give and take, but then it also changes the picture for the defense as well. So, every week we'll try to add more and more different wrinkles, keep adding to what we think can stress out defenses.
He's your fourth new starter since you got to Ohio State. Is this like on progression with where the other guys were with giving them more? Is it like game 6, game 7 when you start to give them more, or is that different for the quarterback?
That's probably about right. Yeah, I think that it's similar maybe than some of the other guys. I think that he's probably right on pace.
Jeremy Birmingham, Rivals, the podcast.
Ryan, looking back at Saturday, Purdue did a really nice job pressure. Wise blitzed a lot. You saw Kyle sort of throwing off the back foot a lot, maybe not getting the arm strength that you expect to see. Is that coachable? Is that just a kid reacting to the pressure? Or was it a mechanical breakdown somewhere else?
I think there was a little bit of both going on. I think they brought, one more. You saw some zero pressure, and anytime that happens, we'll certainly see some of that this week, where they bring one more than you can block. And when that happens, sometimes you do have to drift away from the extra defender to buy yourself enough time for the receivers to get open. And in that moment, you may take the ball a little bit off the ball to allow the receiver to react. But there were other times where that wasn't the case, where, like you said, there was either a breakdown in protection, which, certainly the O-line has their part of it, but also it's it's this tight ends, it's the running backs, it's everybody involved. But certainly what we want to do is we want to take a good drop. We want to get our feet in the ground, and all the power from throwing the ball comes from your cleats being in the dirt. So, there were some times probably where we're drifting a little too much.
Dan Hope, 11 Warriors.
Ryan, how much did you recruit Drew Allar when he was in high school, and just kind of what was that relationship like?
Well, he's an Ohio kid who had a great career. We already had Quinn Ewers committed to us, and then there was a reclassification, and at that point, he was already committed to Penn State. But a lot of respect for him, for his program, and certainly being from the state of Ohio. He's a very good player.
What do you think of the player he is now, and kind of what kind of threats is he going to pose to the defense?
I think he's done a good job in his first year. He's had poise. He's a big, strong quarterback who leads the team well and manages the game well and has a good makeup. I think he's got a bright future ahead of him.
Cameron T. Robinson, the Athletic.
Ryan, that touchdown Kyle threw to Cade, where he just kind of ripped it in that tight window there. Kyle seems to be getting more and more confident with his arm, and his eyes, just letting the ball rip more and more. How have you seen that growth over these first 6 weeks?
Yeah, I think every week it improves, it gets better. There's certain things that you see for the first time every time you're out there. I think the one thing that's unique about our opponents this year is that almost every defense has been significantly different week in and week out. You saw something last week that we hadn't really prepared for in the last couple of years with very different defense. Notre Dame was different. Maryland was very different. Each week, the fronts are different, the coverages are different. So it's great learning for all of our guys to be able to identify what they're up against, learn from it, and then grow.
Have a quarterback like that who's gaining that confidence and just trusting his arm and his eyes more. What's that conversation like with him as you try to add more to his play?
Yeah, I think you're trying to build the confidence up, and you're trying to challenge everybody, but certainly Kyle to grow in certain areas, and he's responded well to that. I think he's responded well to the challenges. I mean, this challenge that we have this week is going to be a big one. This is a very good team, very good defense. Certainly well documented that they're the best defense in the country statistically. Have a lot of guys returning off of last year's team, so. He knows we got to have a great week, and that's for everybody on the team. We got to have a great week of preparation, obviously.
Tony Gertman, Buckeye Huddle.
Ryan, how can you tell you're facing a great defense if they haven't faced any top offenses?
Well, you know what they are coming off of last year. They're a very, very good defense, and you can see the turnovers they're creating, and they played against some solid teams. It's not like they haven't played against anybody. They played against some Big Ten teams, and you can just see the one-on-one matchups, and then also, like you said, coming off of last year. I mean, these guys have played before, and some veteran guys on that side of the ball. So I mean, they're a very good defense.
And they've created some turnovers this year, a bunch of interceptions against Illinois. How much do you talk to Kyle about that this week? Is it more than any other week, or the same as it always is?
Just like every week, yeah. It's just when you're in games like this, as we know, it could come down to one play. So everything is amped up. The consequences are higher, the stakes are higher, and that's the way you want it. We've already been in one of these games this year, but it's just a reminder when you get in these types of games.
Dave Biddle, 24/7 Sports.
Dallin Hayden got his first extended action. What did you see out of him that you liked?
Yeah, I thought when the ball was in his hand, he did some really good things. And I thought our O-line opened up some better holes, but Dallin ran hard as well. I thought once he got through the line of scrimmage, he got up to the safeties, and one run in particular, he really lowered his shoulder and ran the safety over, which I think he's number 31 for Purdue's a really good young safety, and he finished that run really well. So that was probably his best run. But you saw his feet move in the hole, and that was great, especially for somebody who hasn't really played this year.
He seems like one of those guys when the lights come on, he always performs, like going back to the Maryland game last year against Purdue. Is there something holding him back in practice? Maybe that he's not doing well?
No, I think, again, that the best thing that Dallin does is when the ball's in his hand. And he does a nice job with that. I mean, there's certainly more to it than that, but we're happy with how he played on Saturday.
Over to the right, Don Sperry,
WBNS. Coach, I don't know what you can get into. How healthy are you guys? Any word on Trey, Mayan, and Mecca?
Yeah, I'm not going to get into all those guys, but hopeful that we'll have all those guys back for Saturday.
The other thing, you know what it's like playing over there, noon kick here. Just what's your message to the fans coming this week?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing is, I know I talked to Gene about this, and one of the biggest things that he mentioned to me was getting everybody, in the stadium early. We want to do that. We've done that in the past, just to set the tone. But this is one of those games that, we've got to really create a hostile environment for Penn State. In particular, their offense. When we're really loud in the stadium, anytime that their offense has the ball, it makes it very difficult to operate. The communication, the snap count, all of those things. And so the louder we can be. It doesn't matter whether it's third down, red zone, short yardage. If they're operating and they're on the field, the louder we can be, the more hostile that we can be. Advantage Buckeyes. So, that's really one of the things this week that I'll be talking about because this is a big game, but we got them here in the shoe, and let's make it as loud as we possibly can.
Clay Hall, WSYX.
When you're facing a defense like this, they're number one in a couple of categories, number two in another. Are you trying to find, is there a weakness to find, or that's not going to happen? Or when you sit around that table, somebody says, hey, I think we ought to, I've just noticed they don't do this well. I mean, has that moment happened, or that's not going to happen this week?
I think the first thing anytime you're looking at a game plan, you look at the personnel and then you look at the scheme, and you try to do the best you can based on the personnel you have, based on the personnel that they have. What gives our guys the best chance to be successful, to move the ball down the field and score touchdowns. There's a lot that comes with that. Certainly, there's the schematics of it all. It's also what your team knows, what your team has practiced. There's also things that will come into the game plan that are specific to your opponent. That's not any different this week than any other week, but there's a lot of hours spent in those meeting rooms going through that to make sure that our players are playing fast, and I think that's important for coaches to give them a clean plan. Not to put too much on them. You don't want them thinking too much. You want them playing fast.
Austin Ward, the podcast, Rivals.
Ryan, I know you'd never use an injury for an excuse for a game because you probably knew you weren't going to have a Mecca on Saturday, but how much do you feel that in a game, considering all the different ways that you can use a Mecca and maybe some of the creative stuff that we saw, maybe with Xavier specifically, how much of that is just a product of not having a Mecca?
Well, yeah, Mecca, we all know the production that Mecca's had and the impact that he's had on our offense the last couple of years. And anytime you don't have somebody like that, it does affect your offense for sure. We do have great depth. When we lost Chip, we did get, we didn't panic, but it was concerning because now you've lost three of your starting running backs or three of your top running backs. And the great news was Dallin was able to step up in a big way. Xavier was able to step up in a big way. I thought Xavier, graded out a champion. He played well in a lot of areas. He's very versatile for us. You saw him doing a lot of things, running the ball, catching, blocking. And, when you have veteran guys like that who can do many things, you do have to get creative. You have to figure out ways to kind of make it work because ultimately nobody cares. You got to figure out a way to get it done.
What is it about Xavier that allows you to use him in such a variety of ways?
Well, I think the first thing is he became a great special teams player over his career here. So he's a really good football player fundamentally. The second thing is he played running back. He actually played cornerback for a little time here, and he's played receiver. So he's able to do many things. He can be physical and block because he's learned how to play special teams. He can carry the ball. He can run routes. And when you do that and you have that skill set, you're a real weapon.
Stephen Means, Cleveland.com.
With the situation that's going on with Chip Trey in mind right now, I know you guys wanted to redshirt him, but given the way he performed last week, but also what's going on with that room, has that decision changed at all, whether or not you guys redshirt him this year?
I mean, we're still going to do what we think is best to win every game, and it was great to see Dallin run out there and play well in the game. So, when that decision has to be made, we'll make that decision. That decision doesn't have to be made right now because we still have a little bit more wiggle room, but if it comes down to winning games, then certainly, we'll sit down with Dallin and make sure we're all on the same page. But I know Dallin wants to play, and Dallin wants to do what's best for himself, but also for Ohio State.
For us on the outside, when we see Dallin run, whether it's last year or on Saturday, it seems like he's hitting holes, reading it the right way. But sometimes the way you have talked about him in the past, you bring up stuff like ball security, maybe the pass pro. Is he still developing those areas, and does he? Is the ball security an issue in practice? Because we haven't necessarily seen it.
No. I think, like you said, I mean, the number one job of a running back is to take care of the ball. I think you can check that box, for Dallin. So that's been great. And so the more opportunities he gets, the better he's going to be. And so we'll see how this week shakes out.
Steve Hellwagen, 24/7 Sports.
Yeah, Coach, the Devin Brown package there on the goal line, the red zone, just what were your thoughts? Looked like you had it down there 3 times with him, and got 2 touchdowns and then had the ball knocked out the other time, which kind of predictable, I suppose, with a guy in a new situation. Just what were your thoughts about how that all played out? Is it here to stay?
Yeah, I think when you get down into those type of situations, the numbers start to work against you on offense, and when you add the quarterback into it, it can change those numbers. But the great thing about Devin is that he can throw the ball well. You've seen the throw he made to Brandon at the end of the game. So he's not just a running quarterback. However, he is big, strong, and athletic and competitive. And so we had been messing around a little bit with it, but felt like going into that game with the weather situation, at least the forecast about midweek, we can't get caught in a situation like we had in the past maybe. So that was part of it. And then we added that down in the red zone and felt like it was a good package schematically, and wanted to let Devin go and kind of get his feet wet in that area and flush out any possible mistakes that may happen. I thought he ran hard. I thought he competed. I think he, hopefully learned his lesson there on that one. But it certainly does give us a different wrinkle, and we'll continue to build on that package.
You just mentioned the weather. It's going to be similar potentially this weekend. So how good is it what the guys showed at Purdue as far as short yardage, third down, that you might have to replicate a big time this weekend?
Yeah, I mentioned it during the bye week. You're into October and November in the Big Ten, so it's gonna be at least 3 probably bad weather games, and so we got to handle it. So we'll practice in it this week if it shows up and be ready to go. But we got to be able to run our whole offense. We got to be able to run everything, but we'll always look for ways that we can, adapt to the environment, adapt to the situation when appropriate. Yeah.
Another interesting wrinkle you guys showed was a QB sneak, or tush push, whatever everybody wants to call it these days. It seems like an easy play, but how much goes into, one, making that call on that play, and 2, go actually converting it?
Yeah, I mean, there's pluses and minuses to everything that you do, and we try to, we don't just have 1 or 2 plays in those situations. We have a handful of things that we work on, things that we save, things that, we try to grow upon, things that, we do in a game that we try to have a counter off of it, all those types of things. And so, we felt like that was a good moment to get that right there and secure that first down. And we'll keep looking at ways to do everything we can to get that yard or 2 in short yardage.
Just to follow up on Drew Allar's recruitment, you mentioned at the time Quinn reclassified, and then you looked at Drew and he was already committed to Penn State. Is recruiting a player in that situation kind of like trying to man the drive where you're backed up against your own goal line? I imagine it's difficult to really pull that off.
Yeah. If you're into those type of situations, for sure. We were always respectful of the situation. He was always respectful of the situation. He and his family were great, and it's kind of the way it played out. But a lot of respect for those guys.
Respectful,
just when you're committed somewhere and you have a relationship over time, it's just one of those things where you kind of talk to them and reach out and just see if anything were ever to change, let us know. But at the same time, he was committed to Penn State, and we respected that.
Earlier, you asked about guys who were hurt. Denzel wasn't in that group. Is the hope for him also to be back?
Yeah.
Dudley Maurice, Kings of Columbus.
Ryan, it seems like Penn State had, 3, 4, 5 guys who can really get after the passer.
Yeah.
What do you think of them, and what do you think of the way your offensive line has protected Kyle so far this year?
Well, I think there's always plays that we can improve on, but this will be, the biggest challenge to date. They're, very twitchy, very quick. They get after the quarterback at a high level. Both ends. Our NFL players for sure. They've been very productive, disruptive, and so our tackles in particular are going to have to do a great job. They are creative about where they align guys and everything. So it's going to be everybody. They do a lot of moving and do a lot of blitzing. So we're going to be on our game. But it's been like that against Penn State for a long time.
And I think Penn State's second in the nation in time of possession. They haven't been very explosive offensively, but they grind it out. Numbers of plays for you guys and number of possessions has been something that's come up this year. Is there anything you have to prepare for in case this is a a short possession game because that's stylistically kind of how they play.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I think they've done a really good job this year. They have a good offense, they have a good offensive line, big and strong. The running backs run hard. But some of those games that they've been in with, with all the turnovers, I think in maybe the Iowa game, there was 90 to plays to like in the mid-30s, which I've never heard that before. And so they've done an unbelievable job of creating turnovers and, giving their offense the ball. And then, like you said, they've kind of held on to the ball and played complementary football there. So, yeah, we got to look into all those things. Certainly taking care of the football is going to be of utmost importance here. But no, they've done a nice job of that. So, we'll have to have contingency plans in place for that.
Brendan Gulick, Buckeyes Now on Sports Illustrated.
Coach, actually kind of building off Doug's question, Penn State's almost dead last in the country in number of plays that have gone for 20 or more yards. They just haven't had a lot of explosive plays. I'm curious how hard it is to prepare for things that maybe you haven't seen on film. Like you think you know what a team is capable of because you see their talent, but how hard is it to prepare for something that you haven't actually seen?
Yeah, I guess that's a question that comes up at the beginning of every season, but when you're this far into the year, typically that's not something that gets talked about a whole lot. But to your point, they've done a lot of they've had a lot of plays in plus territory, and certainly in the red zone. I think maybe they lead the country in most plays in the red zone. So you may not see as many of those types of plays, but certainly they have them.
And then look, you're 6 games into the season. You've got enough of a body of work for your own resume here to look at. How pleased are you with the way your team is progressing from where you were at the beginning of camp to the beginning of the year to where you are now?
Well, it's every week you come up for air and figure out where you want to get better, where you need to get better, and then you kind of identify the things that you need to continue to enhance, but then other things that you need to improve on, and you go into the game and that, like I said, that's the test. Well, we got a big test on Saturday, so it's hard for me to say right now because this is just such a big game and our focus is all in this game. So, again, better idea after Saturday.
Rob Muller, Columbus Dispatch.
Yeah, a couple weeks ago you talked about the art of coaching, when to be patient, learning how to be patient, when to bite your tongue, when to be fiery. It seems like, and players confirmed, that you are a little more fiery this year. I think they call it you're cutting loose. The question is this something, you have the pulse of your team better than anybody, is this something that's intentional that you're doing? Is this just a progression of being comfortable in your skin?
I think this team likes to get coached hard. I do. I think, they do. And this is a great team that can get pushed and, they respond well. And this is a tough game. There's a lot riding on every game, and we know that. And so, it's my job to bring it every week, every Saturday, and push as hard as I can. But, for the most part, it's thought out beforehand. I'm not just, flying off the handle, although I guess every once in a while, I guess I would. But, I think the guys like to see the passion. I think they like to see that part of it. And so it's my job to bring that, and I'm going to continue to do that.
You're more comfortable doing it? Or were you ever not comfortable?
Well, I think it kind of depends on your team. Yeah, I think it does. I think you got to do the best you can as a leader to lead your team and what your team needs in that game, in that moment, in that year. And, my feeling is this is what this team has needed up to this point, and we'll keep identifying it. Maybe it'll change tomorrow or whatever, but again, I think that's what you try to figure out as the head coach. Yeah.
Bill Landis, Rivals, podcast.
Right, we saw Kyle run a QB sneak. He kept on that one read play. I'm just wondering if you could also use him in the ways you used Devin last week down in the red zone in the run game, or what difference maybe you see between the two that lead you to use Devin?
Yeah, no, it was good. It was good to see him get that pull. You can see he's capable, and then the next play gets the sneak, like you said. So, if we can add that part to the game, that certainly helps us a lot. And so we're going to keep challenging Kyle as well to do that.
You guys seem to have a maybe the most balance I've seen between like gap scheme and zone schemes in that game against Purdue. Is that more of this works against Purdue, or did you maybe stumble upon, we think our offensive line of backs handle the stuff a little better?
I think a little bit of both. You know, we looked hard, obviously, coming off the Maryland game to figure out are we doing the right things for our guys. But then also that was a unique front. It was a 5 on the ball front, and we had to do what was best. So a little bit of both there. But you know, when you do well, you have to identify why you did well, and then you got to be accurate with your assumptions.
This season's probably a little bit different than the last two in the way that you approach a game. Obviously, you have a young quarterback and a defense you can rely on to get stops. Now, I guess how has that changed your approach to the way you manage a game, the decisions you make, and why you make them when you make them?
Well, you go into the game trying to figure out. You have different keys on offense, on defense, on special teams that you have to work on to get done. I mean, we identify those, but then you have to look at it holistically of, you know, how are you going to win this game? You know, how do you – and then sometimes you predict it and it kind of goes the way you think, and other times it doesn't. And that's based on what you have in all three phases. So, you know, and then the game changes. You get a feel for how the game's going, and you try to do the best you can to adapt, to come up with these plans for – how to put your guys in best position to win the game. And, you know, at halftime, I say all the time, you're going to be winning, losing, or tied. Then you kind of figure it out in the fourth quarter. But this is going to be a 4-quarter battle. Always has been, always will be.
Justin Bulbrock, WCMH.
I want to go back to Rob's question real quick. Why do you think this is a team that responds well to the way that you've been coaching this season? Kate Stover says this is a team that has scars from the past couple of years. Is it that? What do you think it is that is allowing you to coach them this way?
Yeah, I guess you know, we've all been through a lot together. Yeah, so maybe that's it. But I don't know. I don't have my finger on it. Maybe I'll have an idea after the season. But we're just going to go hard. We know what it takes to win games. You know, so we're going to go attack this thing as hard as we possibly can, and that's what we want. And I know that's what, you know, that's what we all want. That's what the fans want. You know, just to go as hard as we possibly can and swing as hard as we can. And again, that's what we're going to do on Saturday. But it starts with practice today. We got to have a really good, intense practice. We got to be flying around today. I get more worked up for a Tuesday and Wednesday practice, I think I've said that before, than sometimes on Saturday, because it's so important that we do well. So we'll keep swinging, and you know, this is a good group of guys. And like you said, we all have scars. They have scars, and hopefully, you know, the more battles that you're in, the more battle ready you are.
The regular season is halfway over, but it seems like there's still so much we don't know about your team. I don't know if you have do you kind of agree with that there's still a bit of a mystery, just how good you are, and are your weaknesses truly weaknesses, or are they just, you know, normal steps in development? Probably say the same thing about Penn State.
Well, yeah, I was going to say you probably say it about a lot of teams right now across the country, maybe. You know, I mean, so I don't know. I don't know if I have a good feel for who we are as a team, but now it's time to go play, you know, again in a matchup game, you know, top 5 matchup again. And I think we certainly have learned a little bit about, you know, the quarterback. We've learned a little bit about some of the guys who we didn't know early in the season, but you know, our guys, and we have the pen to go write the script of what the season's going to look like, and that's really what matters. So, you know, a big part of what you're saying is going to be what happens on Saturday.
Obviously, you had a huge win against Notre Dame. This is the second big one. How much does at least having that experience give you confidence, or at least you know kind of where you stand from that game?
Yeah, it gives you a little bit of a barometer, I guess. But that game is so much different than this game. You learn a little bit from every game you play during the season. But that was a very good team. You can see what they did last week. So it certainly does give, you know, some guys who maybe haven't played a lot some confidence, knowing that, you know, we did win that game, and you know, we could have played better and won by more, but we didn't, and but we did win the game. So there's kind of that you know, again, barometer that you use to say, okay, here's what I know playing in a game like that. Here's what I know I got to do if I'm going to improve, because that was a couple weeks ago, and we need to be, you know, much further along than we were at that game.
And we'll wrap things up. Tim May.
Yeah, Tim
May show.
Yeah, that's good. Dallin Hayden, for example, 4 running backs. You know, you looked up last week, and he was your guy. You know, my point is, going into a practice like this week where the other 3 guys were iffy for some reason or another last week, how do you apportion those reps in practice, knowing Dallon's ready to go? I know you won't give me all the secrets. And then number two, do you focus more on what his shortcomings are, which look to be, for want of another term, pass pro? He could be a little bit better in that. How do you kind of manage that in a week like this of this importance?
I think you take a look at how the week goes. I think, like you said, you spread some of the reps around, and then you come up for air at the end of the week and figure out where guys are at, how they looked in practice, and.
Is he getting more reps this week because of that, you think?
I think the guys who are out will still get just as many reps as well. I think you'll try to spread those around, and Tony always does a great job of that, which is why I think Dallin was ready to play in the game the way he did, because we do spread those reps around. And I know it's a question every preseason of how are you going to spread those reps around, and I always say, well, it's a long season, and so that's kind of what happened there. But Dallin has been getting reps in practice, and so I think that's give Tony credit for that, getting him ready.
You guys need to show up on Saturday, right?
I think so. Yeah.
And the other thing with Devin Braden, you don't remember this, but I asked you about this like a long time ago, 5 or 6 years ago. When you put something in, you say it's very important. You touched on this a minute ago, to not just have that one play, but to have tangents off of that one play and stuff. And with Devin Brown, does it give you more confidence now? Obviously he learned from fumbling at the goal line. Does it give you more confidence now to go to that? Much like Urban did with Tim Tebow, way back when, 2006.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's why we did it, to see what it looks like, put it on the field. It's like one of those things, you just got to do it. And we did it. And, we already worked through one of the issues, and hopefully we're growing from that. But like you said, then you build on it, because it is different. It does give you a little bit of a different change of pace. And so, yeah. I liked the look in his eye. I liked his competitiveness. He's got to learn from that mistake. But other than that part of it, I thought he handled the situation well.